2017, 150,000 farms have shut down. Working farmland has been reduced by 21 million acres. The system has been crippling the remaining farmers, forcing some to adopt nefarious farming techniques, like pumping hormones and other performance-enhancing drugs into their cows so they can survive in crammed feedlots. Or the farmers are forced to jump ship and sell to land-hoarding, profit-chasing agricultural oligarchies, who use their billions of dollars to crush the competition and increase your family's dependence on their manufactured food. What could possibly go wrong? The family farm will soon be a thing of the past, unless you do something. You can. That's why there's From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that connects consumers directly with local farmers, which means you can buy fresh, non-factory farm food, and you'll know exactly where your food came from and how it was raised. For the first time in nearly 100 years, independent farms will have a way to not only survive, but thrive. From the Farm was founded by AJ Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Ents, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
What's up, Brooke?
What's up, baby?
I feel like there should be like a transition out of that instead of just boom, here we are.
I know, and every time I watch it, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited for the conversation today. It's good to see you. How you been?
It is pretty good. We're getting close to Christmas, so
Yeah. It's my calendar is less and less busy with calls because everybody's pushing it to the new year, which makes me feel way less productive with everything we have going on. But I guess, tis the season to slow down and put the focus where it matters.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like slowing down, but depending on an individual's like family situation or at home,
Yeah.
Holidays, either you're slowing down or you're not. It's like,
yeah,
that's what I've had to really figure out about my day-to-day, like since moving back home, Southern Utah. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm not nearly as busy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm just as busy.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah, different busy.
It's like I cut things out and I stopped competing and doing my own business stuff, weeding out like sponsorships and all these things. And it's like, I'm clearing out my schedule. It's like, well, I don't think it ever got clear.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I still feel like,
yeah, you just replace one with another.
Yes.
or three others.
Yes. So for like the holidays, some people, it's like, they're just taking their time, having the holiday and reset for the new year. And other people, it's like, I'm taking a break from this because I'm way too busy with all these kids and family and baking and events and presents and wrapping and all the things.
For me, it's
mostly me just yelling at my nieces and nephews that like are brats, when they're acting real bratty.
Yep.
And
Brooke, keeping them in line.
Dude, I come in and I'm like, you guys have it so easy. You don't even know what discipline is.
Oh, that's funny.
People don't discipline the way they did, it was when I was growing up and I'm the youngest. And so I'm always like to my parents and my siblings, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm the last of us.
Yeah.
Like, growing up, the baby of the family. And if I have to listen to you guys complain about your kids fighting one more time, kick their butt, get them in line.
Yeah.
Mom and dad got us in line.
Yeah.
And even when we didn't get in line, we got what was coming to us.
Yeah.
And that is part of your childhood.
Yep.
That's part of it.
100%.
I'm like telling my sisters, you always with your siblings, if you have, bigger family, maybe not everybody, I understand not everybody, but with your siblings, a lot of things you experience with one another growing up made you very angry. Fighting, physically, wrestling, wearing your sister's clothes to school.
Yeah, we hear that in my house.
That one actually those are new pants, and walking out to my friend's mom who was picking all of us up because we actually had a softball game the night before, so we got to miss our first period.
Yeah.
My parents had just left for Palm Springs, and I broke my leg. I ended up in the hospital. They had just got to Palm Springs.
Oh, really?
My uncle calls, and they're like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
Oh my gosh!
So they had to come back, and I found out they had to cut the pants off of me.
Oh, dang!
So my sister was very upset.
Yeah.
The reason I say this is when your kids fight, when they're fighting and they're physical or whatever it is, yeah, it's super annoying. Yeah, you could easily put them in the trash can. But also, for you kids out there, I don't know if there's any kids watching this, those are the stories and the memories that are the most fun to reminisce on when you're older.
Yeah.
When
the anger's gone and now it's just
oh man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, you remember that time when we were fighting and you kicked me in the stomach and then yelled for Dad to tell me to get out of your room, but you were in my room? It happened to me. Yeah. Oh man. My sister would come in my room all the time, beat me up, yell for my dad to tell him to tell me to get out of her room. And he yelled at me. And as an adult, it's funny because when I let him know for the first time, hey, that all those times Lacey was never in. I was never in her room. He laughs. He laughs. But when you're young, you're getting yelled at.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
Yeah, totally.
It's like the furthest thing from funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So the holidays,
cool.
Family.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
Yes, it is. Cool. Let's give you guys some updates real quick. So first of all, for those of you that are watching, let me find my words. This is a live show. You can ask questions. We do have an awesome guest today. We're excited to introduce you guys to our guest. Her name is Amy Hay. She's the creator of Sell Beef Direct. She's a rancher in Canada, and we're really excited to get to know her better, her operation up there, learn a little bit about the way the Canadian folks do it, but also, and most importantly, talk about her work to help farmers and ranchers increase their sales. So, but before we jump into that and bring Amy on, just to give you guys all an update real quick. First of all, thank you for everybody who participated and has been participating in the feedback on testing the software. That just came on out of nowhere. So a lot of you guys in the last few days took on the call to action to go onto our website and play around with it and let us know any feedback. We're always iterating. The development of the site is done both by the producers' feedback and how we can better serve farmers and ranchers, but also you guys, the customers, and how you like to navigate on the website. So a lot of you guys took us up on that invitation this last week. That's really helping formulate the things that we take on first. We have a long list, but your help gives us that guidance. So thank you guys for doing that. We've had quite a few new customers in the last week jump on and purchase from one of our producers for the first time. So that's cool to see the new people coming on. And also we've seen some of our past customers come back, which developing a business, for those of you who don't know, as we're doing this, we're like, okay, you bought once, what led up to not buying again? And actually, let me just share this real quick. We had a customer, I got on the phone with her this last week. She bought when we very first launched in March. And then I didn't see her come back until she just bought here in December from a different producer. So I contacted her because I'm always trying to learn. And I said, so what happened? You bought right away. And she's like, I'm a huge fan. First of all, it's kind of interesting. She's like, I couldn't believe the caller ID showed up. And I was like, no, that's not AJ really AJ from the farm, which is weird for me to hear because I'm just AJ. But she picks up, it is you, and I was like, cool, awesome. So give me your feedback. So she was the perfect customer to really just unload in a good way what was going on and share with me how we can make that connection. And her answer was simply that she forgot. She goes, I forgot to order again. I want to be all in on this. And then I would just have this excuse where all of a sudden it was dinner time. So I needed it now. So I just run to the local grocery store because I forgot. And then we sent out an email about behavior change science and how you can slowly transform the stuff you're buying from commercial to direct from the producer if you just pick one item at a time, get comfortable with that, and then find the next one instead of, paralysis by analysis. How the heck am I going to change out everything in my fridge and my pantry to go direct? That's too much. And she said that email reminded me like, oh yeah, duh. I'm committed to this. I don't need to do it all at once, but I do need to at least start developing and understanding that I have a responsibility in my own behaviors to make the choice that actually matters to me. So anyway, again, super grateful for all the feedback. On our crowdfunding campaign, we're at we're $217,000 raised with about 240 investors. It is an SEC regulated investment. If you're interested in backing From the Farm, go to wefunder.com/from the farm. Check out our pitch deck. All the details are on there. We're actually not allowed to go into details outside of the platform. So go and check that out if you're interested. But we've had, like I said, 240 people jump in and back us. So that's the updates. Without wasting any more time, let's jump in, bring Amy on. I'm going to play you guys a quick video, one of her Instagram posts, in kind of how she breaks down a little bit what she does for our farmers and ranchers. I'm new to this. So what she's saying there is, I don't have time. So a lot of ranchers and farmers have a hard time finding the time to sell their beef direct. And she's saying you do. She runs a beef ranch, no hands, meaning they don't have any help. It's just her family. They sell beef direct to consumer. They do 20 head every month, organized and delivered by them on top of running the ranch. And she trims the hooves of 11 horses every few weeks. So she's busy. And if she can do it, you can do it. And that's her point. So without any more time wasted, let me bring Amy on.
Hi.
Welcome, Amy.
I'm laughing at that reel.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah,
so
I got
good.
another one to share later, but yeah, it's awesome. Amy, we're super excited to have you on. We connected. I've been following you for a long time on social media. You start generating your kind of your network or watching people that are out supporting farmers and ranchers, because while there's a lot of new support coming around, there's still a huge void for this industry. And so it's not hard to get connected and start following people making waves and trying to help people out in the space. And so that's been following you for a while. And then finally we connected because, we know it From the Farm. And I know you feel the same way too, that this is a collaborative effort to really kind of help what's going on, right? Your country, just like ours, is at a deficit for food growers. And we really need to support the ones we have left and kind of help pave the way for new people to get involved, just because we need it in both of our countries. So why not to open up, Amy, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What got you into agriculture? Are you from agriculture? Let us know about yourself.
I'm from Scotland. I'm in Canada, but I'm from Scotland. Not from agriculture at all. So my husband's from New Zealand. I'm from Scotland, and we literally picked Canada because it's halfway between the two.
Gotcha.
And I know that sounds insane, but that is literally that is what we awesome. Did. We're both so he's got a little bit agriculture experience. He grew up, like, his grandfather had big sheep ranch in New Zealand. So he kind of grew up with that, but we're both first generation here. And we're both engineers, and we lived on the ocean, not a blade of grass in sight. And it was just a dream. We gave it all up to move 5 hours away and raise beef. And what makes it even better is I'm a former vegetarian.
Oh, I didn't know that. That does make it better. I didn't know that. That's awesome. When did you start eating meat? What was the transition there? Oh, okay.
It was back in my 20s. Like, it was the misguided conception that by not eating meat, I was doing more for animals and treatment than by eating meat, which is so wrong, that you need to support the farmers and ranchers that sell direct to have the ethical treatment of animals. So we've come full circle.
If there was one thing that either you experienced or you read or heard that was a catalyst for that transition, what was it?
Oh, I mean, we're going back 20 years. at the time we went out for dinner, my whole family, and everybody ordered a steak, and I went, oh, screw it, I'll have a steak. And that was the end. But it was like in my head, like I would, if I'm from the north of Scotland, and if my dad or brother shot a pheasant, I'd almost happily eat that for dinner, but I wouldn't eat a chicken from the store because, I'd read all these magazines, I would give money to wildlife funds and all sorts because of all the awful treatment of animals. And yeah, that was just in my teenage, early 20 brain. That's what I was doing.
Could you ever imagine being on a ranch now?
No, never. Back then? Yeah. It's awesome though.
Yeah. So, okay. So why ranching? I mean, you could have gone there being between home, but what was the catalyst for you to get into ranching?
The very first night that I met my husband, like then, so this is like a roundabout story. He was chief engineer on a big yacht, a big ship, and I was supplying and installing the satellite communications equipment. So he was my client. So we had taken them out for dinner, and we're having like post-dinner drinks. And he is, if you ever meet him, he's super stoic, super quiet, kind of he just observes. And I'm like, you have to join in. So we're chatting at the bar, and he said that we just got speaking, and he was like, his dream, he doesn't want to be on the ocean forever. His dream is to raise wagyu. And he was thinking Montana or somewhere, like he knew he didn't want to go back to New Zealand. And he was like, 10 years from now, I just want to have a ranch and raise wagyu. So that was in 2005. So that was almost 20 years ago. Yeah. So we did it in not quite 10 years, but yeah, we were both, we started it, like that was the dream. And we ended up both still working full time, and we bought 6 acres in the lower mainland of British Columbia. And we got recipient cows, and we put wagyu embryos in them. That was like the start. And it was just, if we don't do this now, we never will. So we have to go big or go home. And then the kicker, my eldest, who is now 15, he must have been 6 or 7. And it was the Christmas break, and Scott's shipyard had shut down for Christmas. And so he was at home for 2 weeks, and my son crawled into his lap and just snuggled in and said, "You're a much nicer dada when you're not at work." And it was just like, oh. Yeah. And that was kind of it. It was like, we have to do this. And we did. Insane, but we did.
How old were you guys when you started the ranch?
This ranch or the first one in Langley?
Your first one when you jumped into ranching.
36.
Okay. Awesome. I read somewhere, a friend of mine, Mitch, wrote an article, and he did the research that 30% of America's producers are currently first generation, and the average age is now 40. So I look at that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the midlife crisis for the Zennials and Millennials, ranching and farming instead of the sports cars.
Yeah, everyone that's like, man, I got to go back to what I did when I was little, like what my family did.
Yeah,
I got to get out. I got to get out of this. I need a change of pace, really.
Yeah.
But plus, everything nowadays, which it's been like this for a long time now, is so fast paced. It's like it feels like it's hard to even just keep up with your own just life that's outside of anything to do with business.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It feels like that all the time, especially with all the different platforms and social medias and things like that, because it's all tied into every business now to where you can be set up to never stop working. And at a certain point, you're going to be like, I quit everything. I'm moving back out to the sticks.
Yeah. So Amy, you guys got into ranching, and I'm guessing it was smooth sailing from there. You guys jumped in, and everything, all the opportunities opened up for you, and ranching was successful.
No problems.
No, not quite. It is now, but it wasn't the smoothest of journeys, shall we say?
Yeah. So what were some of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way? I mean, I know they're innumerable, really, but because you guys went into a space from never being in, I'm sure you guys learned a lot. But once you start a ranch and you get into ranching for the first time, and I haven't, right? I see my family ranch, but they're they're just continuing a ranch as it was handed down and, improving genetics here and there maybe and stuff like that. But to start from scratch and get all the way from finding the land, building your herd, getting your infrastructure built, then all the way down to now where you're selling direct. I mean, you said it's been a little over 10 years or just under 10 years?
We've been doing it full time since January 2019. So
okay.
Coming up 6 years.
Yeah. And so you're full-time ranching. That's I don't want to skip over that because the majority of producers are not full-time. They're part-time, right? I mean, that's not the right term. They're full-time ranching and full-time off farm is really what that means. But when I first talked to you, one of the things you said is that you were looking at the numbers and ranching wasn't working financially. So you put your past knowledge of, your MBA or something like that. I can't remember what you told me you had to work and said, well, I've got these degrees, these experiences. Why don't I just apply that to ranching? What was that? Can you recall what that was like, what you were going through at the time?
So to buy this ranch, I mean, I think everyone kind of struggles with this, is finding property and being able to find land to ranch. So we did have to move 5 hours away, but the property market in the coast near Vancouver was like at a peak. So we released equity in our 6 acres to buy this ranch. So for a while we were carrying 2 mortgages because the property market crashed. Like it was up at its peak and then we just chased it down. So by the time we sold our 6 acres, it didn't pay for this place because we ended up actually having to pay $10,000 to sell.
Oh man. Dang. Yeah, that's a drop.
Yeah. So then so we had got, because we were under 40 at the time, our local the like financial agricultural lender was doing this big push on young farmers. And if you're under 40, you qualified. So everything was held with this financial ag lender. And they foreclosed on our new ranch because we were in so much, like the equity didn't cover anything because it was just a nightmare. So to foreclose on a ranch in Canada, I don't know whether it's the same in the US, it takes 12 months. So it's not like they foreclose and in 2 months you have to leave. It's literally 12 months because you're part of the food chain and you're part of all of this kind of stuff. So we were almost at that final hour and we were like, we just have to do what we said we would do, which is to sell direct. So that was when, everything, all those hours in management and sales and business and everything. And it was, this has to work. And we ended up having an order booked out, I think like 7 months in advance. And we were bringing in $50,000 revenue a month to the point where we went over the local branch's head and went, come on, like, can you not see this works? And like, this is valid. And they went, yeah, okay. And they stopped all proceedings.
Wow.
Yeah, that is
holy cow.
In a nutshell.
I can only imagine like how you felt in that moment too. Top of the world.
Yeah. Well, and the amount of stress leading up to the breakthrough. I'm like, holy crap.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You're basically like knocking on heaven's door. You don't know if you're going to be able to have it or you won't have it or what's going on. And I mean, good job. Wow. Congratulations on sticking to it and figuring it out.
It was a little stressful.
Yeah.
A tiny bit.
So what was it that what were the thing? I mean, this is what your program has evolved into now because you went through it personally. So what were some of the highlights that you identified that you weren't doing that implementing made the biggest difference?
This might sound insane, but the thing that really springboarded and we leapt into new heights was Instagram. And I had never had Instagram ever. I don't know. I was like a platform like there's too many. I was we had a Facebook page. I have a personal page, but we had our Facebook like ranch page and that was doing well. And then I think it was on, you've heard of Foundr, Foundr, the Foundr magazine, and they do like master classes, and it was like a free founder master class on social media. And I went, it was like an hour and a half. I sat up at the kitchen table and I made like pages of notes, and it was all Instagram. And I'm like, really? So I started Instagram, and within a couple of months we had taken off and gone beyond what our Facebook page was, and building this huge following. And that helped us to no end. So then it's like that first step, like before you do anything, having that pool of potential customers, and they were nearly all from Instagram.
Wow. What year was that?
2020, end of 2020, beginning of 2021.
Okay. Do you see Instagram still being as effective today for the new clients you're working with? If they're not on there at all, you get them on there. It's still effective.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not just a tool for finding new customers, but if you understand what retargeting is, and you can retarget to something on Instagram, then you're grooming, maintaining, building relationships with existing customers and leads, and they just go around this circle. So if you've done an amazing ranch post, like one of the ones that always does well for us every year is we freeze brand before we put everything on range. So when we freeze brand, you have to shave them, square alcohol, and then liquid nitrogen and freeze brand. And we have our friends come over, and we normally have a couple of interns because it's in the summer, and my husband gives everyone a haircut. So he gets the big shears, and my son gets a mullet, and our friend gets a mullet, and it's kind of like a funny reel. Awesome. And it always does really well socially. But when we retarget our list, so when I send out an email to my list and I retarget that reel, it's almost like they're like, oh, wow, it's real life and it's whatever. And then they go and buy something. Like it's this big circle.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. I think you heard before we brought you on, the customer I was talking to that hasn't ordered since March. And she's all about it. Would have been a customer from March till now. She just forgot, so we've been working on so many other things that our system's internal retargeting or reminding, hey, we're here. What do you need? We've got it for you. Isn't fully set up yet. And so what you're talking about is setting it up in a way that you're just reminding the people that already found you, hey, we're here if you're ready to order, because everybody's so busy. And so to remember all this, like my wife the other day, this morning, she was making breakfast, and I looked in the fridge, when I woke up before they got up, and I saw a package of bacon in there, that she took out of the freezer that we got from our local pig farmer. And first of all, I was surprised that she remembered, because that's the biggest challenge. You go to make something in the morning, you're like, oh crap, I forgot to pull it out the night before, So there's all these things that get in the way. You might have a freezer clear full of great beef, but you forget to pull it out. So then you run to the grocery store, just things like that, reminding people of what you have and what's available and what they have to use. So that makes sense. So Instagram was one key thing that you did. And then you already kind of mentioned them in that description. So after you got on Instagram, did you already know how to retarget? Did you already know how to do all of the things you do now? Okay. So then what was the next step for you in your process?
So in a really rough and ready kind of side, like everything is so much more sophisticated now, but in that kind of rough and ready state, it was having a website. So I had a website, but it was polishing it. So having a website that you could drive traffic to, and then some way to capture them, and then you can email them. And I remember my very first email, it was awful. It went out to 160 people. I forgot to put in links, and it was so bad. But eventually, having that social media, that website, that email was just kind of, you gave a whole customer journey. So you grabbed them, then you kept them, and then you spoke to them, and they would purchase. And I speak to people that our email list, like to be doing 20 head a month, you would think we would have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of email addresses. But because of social media, our list is really warm. So I only have like 2,700 email addresses on my list, but it's a really warm list. So they're every time we email them, you know, they're buying something or they're responding or they're kind of commenting on stuff. So you don't need a list of 20,000 people really, because they're not all going to buy your beef. Like, you're better off focusing on that warm audience then.
Yeah. And what you're talking about, just to break it down for those that may not know, is these are people that want to hear from you. Like they're looking forward to your next email or update on the ranch or whatever you're working on. And they become part of your community. A lot of people that are watching this will know the Amos Miller story in Pennsylvania, when they raided his operation and threw all of his dairy away. And then he had to go through this whole court battle and court proceeding. Ultimately, he won that, but listening to the process as he was going through the battle, at some point he had about 400 and something of his customers show up at the hearing. And that's what led to the dismissal. So the value of really developing that tight community around your operation, the people that really get to know you and they're like, no, we count on you for our food, can go far beyond just, you know, the exchange of resources for you to continue to grow the food. It can also be, hey, we're in trouble. Somebody's trying to claim something that's not true. We need your help. And that's what happened with Amos, because he had that warm list of people he could say, we're in trouble. We need your help. And they showed up for him. Yeah. That's amazing. Before I jump go further into your program, I want people to really just understand that it's, whether you're, you know, listening to this and you're a customer, or you're listening to this and you're a producer. I mean, you are a producer first. You guys live in a place where the only connection you have is right where you're sitting, because everywhere around you, there's no service from what I understand, from what you were telling me.
There's no cell service.
Yeah. The video we watched was you actually trimming horses' hooves. Like, you're doing the work there, you know, and which is also just incredible to watch and know that you have not been doing this for that long, and you're doing all of the things to raise the livestock, including shawing your own horses, like, or trimming them, you know. I mean, you guys have clearly covered a lot of education and ground in the last, 10 plus years. But so you guys, how do you find the time? Like, you're doing the stuff, because that's one of the things we know working with a lot of producers, and maybe, we don't maybe have to go into this too much, but maybe it's the difference between first generation and having so much leveraged and maybe not. And maybe you're a first generation producer that's also not leveraged because you had a whole bunch of money somewhere else and this is a hobby. So you're fine. You have a burn rate that isn't equal to your ranching hobby. Right. But I guess my point is like, that's the excuse we hear a lot, is I don't have time to go direct. And yet they're facing the foreclosure. So how do you find the time? What have you, now I think you've developed it to simplify, so it isn't going to take the same amount of time it took you to learn, but how did you find the time to do that? Or was it just grit? I'm about to lose it, so we're digging in and doing everything we can.
Grit and determination. Yeah. I don't know whether it's a Scottish saying, but my mom says it all the time, is if you want something done, ask a busy person, because if you ask someone who I mean,
my mom. I grew up with like hearing that because of the women that were in my family, my grandma, my aunt, my mom, but the type of woman that's like, anyone, woman or man, so busy, but for some reason, like, that's who you ask.
Yeah.
Even if they're so busy, like, that's the person that's going to get it done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Like, if you don't have anything to do, you procrastinate and you kind of go, oh, I'll do it later. I'll have a cup of coffee first and I'll do it tonight. Whereas we're like, boom, boom, boom. We have a schedule and it's like, I have this little bit here that I can squeeze you in and I'll just get it done because I'm motivated. I'm in the zone to get stuff done. So, yeah. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I have 3 kids and it's getting them up and getting them and like making school lunches and getting them out the door. And then it's like being a mom, like it's the laundry and the cleaning. And then like, it's everything. And then it's squeezing in like an hour to work out. And then it's working cows and doing chores and selling beef and teaching. And yeah, I don't know. It just all happens.
It just all happens. I'll bet you sleep well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. But it's also, the hardest part is starting. Like, the hardest part is making that first step. And you said it earlier, analysis paralysis, that if you keep on thinking about it and you have to wait until it's perfect, it'll never be perfect. You just have to make that step. So as a producer, if you want to start selling direct, just start, because once you've started, it's so much easier to fine tune and change direction than being sat going, I really want to, but I don't know how. And then it's too hard. I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. I'd pop that question up because I wonder if you would have answered it the same way. What advice would you give to someone who wants to take a step to becoming a producer and carrying out that dream? Now, you'll probably have you might have some recommendations before just starting. You know, how much research did you guys do to know where you wanted to go? I mean, you said your husband had this dream for Wagyu, so you already knew kind of the breed you were going into, but what would your advice be to somebody like that wants to get started for the first time?
Depends where they're starting from. Like, I know I get asked a lot of questions about how, as a first generation, how do I buy land? And the land where I am is so expensive. And as cold and as harsh as it sounds, move. Like, go somewhere where you can afford it. That, you know, we moved 5 hours away to be able to afford where we are, because where we lived, there's no way we could have afforded this. But also, we couldn't do this in Scotland, and we couldn't do this in New Zealand. Like, it would be very different to what we're doing now, that sometimes you have to move. Like, look to where land is affordable. And the world is a small place, that there's internet, there's webcam, there's FaceTime, there's airplanes, that you'll still see family and friends.
I did a ranch tour here in Wyoming for a conference I went to, and the people that were given the tour, it was on their ranch. They were an older couple, probably in their mid 60s. And that was the 4th ranch they were on, and not even in the same state. And I come from a family background where everybody ranched the land their family homesteaded. So they didn't leave. And so that, just even now, just thinking about that, to be in an operation and knowing how much work you have to put in an operation for it to run, and to think that they had done that 4 times, you know, because we get so, I feel like my family gets so attached to the historical land and our connection to that because of our ancestors. And yet maybe that's not the best place to raise beef. You know, people are going to make a go of it, and you got to raise beef everywhere. And you actually need cattle on these desert environments even more so than not. But anyway, it's just interesting to meet people that start somewhere from scratch and build it from scratch, you know, and really learn the land and how to read it and read your livestock and the weather. And you guys are going into winter up there. I can't imagine, you know, what that's like and how you put up for that.
I'm looking at it's cold. It's not too bad just yet. It's pretty mild. It's only like, it's -2 C. So I don't know what that is Fahrenheit.
Me neither. Somebody else will comment on that. Brian, you're listening. Jump in. Brooke, Brian, I know you were thinking the same thing. We got a friend Brian on here that's an awesome friend, and he's a genius, so he'll prop it in there. But,
the answer will pop up.
Yeah. But in the dead of winter, what's that like? How much snow do you guys get where you're at?
I mean, like, we ski a lot, but we probably get, over the course of winter, we probably get around about 5 to 6 feet, but it's not all at once. So it's not like I have 6 feet of snow outside my front door. It's accumulative. Like, it comes and goes and comes and goes. We don't have much snow now. We maybe have a couple of inches. It's pretty cold. And we'll have snow. Like, we have an amazing climate for all those seasons. So we'll probably have snow December through to March, and then no more fresh snow. And then it'll all start to melt.
Okay. So that's not terrible where you're at. It's about similar to what Montana and stuff like. It's not Alaska. Yep. I'm following this guy in Alaska that is like, if the ranch fails, it's going to be because of equipment or cattle loss. He's like, I'm just watching his post every day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that poor guy.
I think I follow him too, actually.
Yeah. 40%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, gosh, dang. I applaud that guy for his effort, but holy cow, he seems to get his teeth kicked in a lot. I hope he can get figured out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like he has a customer issue. It's a weather and learning how to do that in Alaska, which is unfortunate because we get a lot of people going to From the Farm saying, do you have any contacts in Alaska? Well, now I see why we don't. It's really hard to make a go of it. I know there's people up there doing it, but he's a first generation guy. And I think to ranch in Alaska, it might help to have had some generational knowledge handed down.
Yeah, it's harsh.
Yeah. So you're super busy doing all the stuff on the ranch and then running the business. Where do you find the time to run the business? I've met, you've got somebody working with you right now to help you, and you're looking at growing because you guys are growing.
Oh, the Sell Beef Direct business, not the ranch business.
Yeah, Sell Beef Direct business. Yeah.
Sorry, I was like ranch because we were talking about ranch. And now
I should have helped you out with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I am. So that has taken off. I started Sell Beef Direct way back. So January 2023, because 2022, after we had kind of got rid of all that foreclosure stuff hanging over our head, and we just grew and we grew and we grew. And every time I would post anything about, selling out or being first generation, or, I'd have people messaging me from all over, from Iowa, from everywhere. And I just remember going, here's my number, call me. And I would be on the phone to people, farmers who I have no idea who they are, for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just going, so you want to do this and you want to do this, and then you want to make sure you have that, and then make sure you do this, to the point where I was like, I wonder whether this is something. Like, is there something here that I can fill in a gap and really help first generation, multi-generation really start to sell direct? And when I started, it was super rough and ready, which just, my kind of motto is, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work. Yeah. And that's the same for anything, from tractors to seeders to, it doesn't have to be perfect.
From thefarm.org.
Yeah. But and that was at that point, it was like, this is how you book a call, and it'll cost you this much, and here is a guide of everything you need to do, and that's $50. And as soon, I think the first week I launched, I was getting sales, like people were purchasing, and I was like, wow, this is insane. And then it kind of grew to what it is now, which is a full course and program. And yeah, it's kind of, it used to be just me, but now I have, in my whole team, there's 5 of us. So one is, I would say, is staff. Like, she's my virtual assistant, and she is amazing. She is so awesome. But then I have contractors to help with email marketing, and to help me with the websites, and to help me with running ads on Meta and things. And yeah, it's gone insane. It's super, super busy.
Yeah, good. You got to balance that between raising kids and livestock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a one-handed husband right now. He in the summer, he crushed his hand with a post pounder. Oh, kind of nasty. He almost lost 3 fingers. He may still lose 2. It's not pretty, but he he's a bit useless right now. So it's kind of, he's awesome, and he works hard, but he's not fully able right now. So
he's not at 100%.
Really busy. Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. I got a couple of questions coming in that we'll talk about here. So somebody said, can you raise cows on 10 acres?
Of course you can.
And, yep, exactly. Of course you can. And they said
absolutely.
That, I thought you needed much more than that to feed them. So I think the details around that for you, if you're still on, is that you can finish out cows on 10 acres. You can't, 10 acres is enough space that if you have access to feed, you can have a few cows on 10 acres and feed them there, but you wouldn't have enough of your own natural grass on 10 acres. But yeah, you can absolutely. And what people will do is they'll go to the sell barn, or they'll have a friend that has a cow calf operation, and they'll buy, a yearling, a 1-year-old cow, and you'll bring it home, or a few, however many you want to feed out on your land. And you'll grow them from there. So good question.
We had 23 on 6 acres.
You had 23 on 6 acres. Wow. Yeah, great.
We were bringing them, and we were bringing in haylage bales, and we were bringing in all the hay, like the feed. We couldn't feed them where we were, but we leased 2 10-acre parcels close to us where we could put them to graze. And we also had arrangements with, like, at that point, we weren't grass-fed and finished. At that point, we were just pasture raised and finish them however you can. And we were bringing in brewer's mash. So from all the microbreweries around the Lower Mainland, around Vancouver and stuff, we would bring in all the brewer's mash, which is amazing. And yeah, so we had 23 head.
Awesome.
On 6 acres. So 10 acres, you can, I would even say, look at pigs. I mean, look at pork, look at pastured pork, look at layers, look at meat birds. Like you can do so much on 10 acres and use that as a stepping stone to something bigger.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have a partner, Food Forest Abundance, and they do blueprint designs of food forests that are no maintenance, really. They partner the trees with the shrubs, with the ground plants. They're all food producing or medicine plants, but they self support each other. And so if you've got 10 acres, I mean, they start from quarter acre all the way up to 3, where they'll design this whole food forest for you. So yeah, there's a lot. If you've got 10 acres, man, that definitely should be in production of some kind of food, and you can make profit on it too. That's really neat that you finished out that many. Somebody else asked how many. It's a good question. Definitely probably not when we'll dig in deeper here, but what's the recommended cows per acre ratio? Well, that question spans wherever you're at.
Yeah, it depends where you are. Like if you're in the Pacific Northwest, it's like 1 to 2 acres per unit. But if you're in like Nevada or Arizona, it could be like 20 acres per unit. Like it depends on what the land can produce.
Yeah, I have family running cows, and their units is animal units per acre, basically, is what that means. But they're running 1 pair per 100 acres is what they're running. Yeah. I mean, it's just desert, and you couldn't run that more than that right now. Now, if they improved water access and did a bunch of things that would require a ton of input and money and approval from the government, because they're raising on a lot of Bureau of Land Management ground, then they could increase that, but they're restricted off of who's in charge of their lease. So yeah, fascinating. So you've got Amy, you have 3 kids. How old are they?
10, 13, and 15.
Okay. And are they all excited to be on the ranch? Do they love?
Yeah.
Sounds like your oldest was young enough to really, that's the life that they know.
Yeah. They, I ask them every now and then, would you want to go back to the coast? And they're like, no. And even now they're all starting to be like, when we take over, and it's like, it's not a given. You've got to work for it, but they do enjoy it. And they do. I think my son is the only one that gets paid out of all of us. He actually gets a wage when he works, but yeah,
keeping him happy.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's great. So you've got a couple of different programs that you offer for producers when they're learning to go direct or at some level of selling direct. Let me pop this up real quick and have you kind of speak to this a little bit here. So you've got your, what's the Explore Mini Cash Cow? How does that work?
So that's like the entry level that maybe you've already started and you have a website, but it's just not working for you, or you're wanting to get started. The Mini Cash Cow is basically how to start selling direct. So like how to use social media. There's 8 modules in there. There's, how to find customers, how to send emails, how to use social media, but it's very entry level. So it's like enough to kind of tease people to get started. And then maybe that's all they need, or it might get them to the point where they can then move on. Okay.
So it sounds like that level is all of the early learnings that you had to go through to be like, okay, I need that. But you've compiled it. So they're not trying to figure out what they need. Here's what I learned I needed that got me started. And so that's your, like an initial introductory to that. And then you've got your discovery empowering farmers. What level does that go to?
So the Mini Cash Cow is like $33 and it's laid out and it's easy to follow. The next course, the empowering, is a proper course. So it's based on a do-it-yourself model. So it's literally step by step that you have to do the work. So this is how to set up your social media. This is how to monetize your social media. This is how to set up your pricing. And then some farmers need this. It goes into, cash flow, revenue, gross profit, net profit. It goes into all those things that they need to get that price. So, that, if you follow me, it's like it hurts my heart when farmers are selling their their beef for $3.50 a pound. Like, it hurts my heart. And it's like, hopefully it kind of shows them that they don't need to, that they really have something so amazing that people want. And it's how to kind of work that out accordingly. And then it goes into, you know, target audience, customers, customer retention, maximizing yields. It goes into everything you need to go from never having sold direct to shipping product. It's lifetime access. It's 8 courses designed to take 8 weeks. I would do a week per module, just so that you follow the module and then you implement it. You don't just go through it all and then go, okay, now I've got to implement it all. So yeah.
Let's talk about that for just a minute from the customer perspective. So a lot of people listening are going to be not producers, they're customers. And I think the people listening understand the farmers are worth more than what they're receiving, but sometimes we get the pushback that the farmers charging way too much. And that really just comes from people not knowing the supply chain and how it works and why the prices are what they are. You know, when you go buy, if you were to go buy a whole beef, one piece at a time at the grocery store, you're going to spend $7,000 to $8,000, depending on where you're at, just for a whole beef, which when you go direct to the producer, you're looking at that price per pound on an individual cut, just like at the grocery store. But the reality is what you're paying at the grocery store, you know, some people are like, why am I paying the rancher what I pay the grocery store? Shouldn't it be cheaper? My answer is no, actually the rancher needs what the grocery store is making to stay viable. If you want food to be raised, that retail dollar is what the rancher should be receiving. And that's why we've lost 20,000 ranchers over a year for the last 5 years, because they're not receiving the retail. That money, that $30, $25 ribeye you paid in the grocery store, when the rancher sold that down the existing supply chain, they only got 14 cents on the dollar. So that's why they're going away. So how do you kind of communicate to the customers the value and so forth from that angle, the customer angle?
So a lot of it comes to in information, like really giving a wealth of information on your ranch pages. So things like the customer, they don't know what they don't know. So they don't realize that a great example is a USDA label doesn't guarantee that beef came from a US farmer. It could have come from China and then was processed in the States, and they slap on a USD label. So I'm going to say we the farmers would never see that anyway. And it's crazy to me. But then also, like, the customer doesn't realize the stuff in the store is wet aged and the stuff from a farmer is dry aged. So like your pound of ground from me would maybe shrink, I don't know, an eighth when you cook. Whereas a pound of ground from the store, you get all that fluid that comes out because it's wet aged, and you can lose up to a third. So your apples for apples, it's not the same. And then sticking on that ground trend, they've done DNA tests that a pound of ground at the store could have the DNA of 1,000 different animals. So either is all in a big trim bin and they've come from everywhere, or they don't clean the equipment between processing. Either way, it's not nice. Whereas
either one is pretty gross.
Exactly.
Either option, and we know it's at least one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy a pound of ground from me and another farmer, you know, it's got an RFID tag, it's got a carcass number, it's got a processing date, it's got a hanging date. It's, you know, you can trace it all the way back to the field. So, you know, you're not comparing apples for apples. But for those people who go to the butcher and they pay $12 a pound for ground beef, why not pay $8 a pound direct from the rancher?
Yeah.
The butchers are great too. But I mean, like, yeah.
But they also, a lot of times, big grocery chain or big beef producers will add, it's called LFTB. Had to look it up. I knew it started with an L, but it stands for lean, finely textured beef. And so what I read an article where they'll add 30% of this LFTB to that pound of ground beef. So what they're doing is basically like a bad Coke dealer cutting your Coke with flour. Sorry, bad analogy. I've never done Coke, but I've heard it. It's funny. So, you know, they'll add this LFTB. They can call it lean, finely textured beef specifically because, so what it is, first of all, it's just fat trimmings. It's only fat trimmings, and Brooke's still laughing at me for making a great analogy.
And it's just gross.
Yeah, it is gross.
It's just gross. It's just gross. It's like we're not for it, but like even someone selling it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to
me, it's like you can dress it up. Yeah. Whatever it is, but like even just the name of it.
Yeah. So like, LFTB
no, that's disgusting.
Yeah. It's like LFTB is like if you buy tallow to make beef tallow rendered, and then you render it down and you have what's the cracklins that are left, right? The cracklins is meat. It's still muscle that was part of it.
Yeah.
So LFTB, as long as they grind it together and it's pink, the USDA allowed them to call it beef. It's just fat.
Yeah.
But so they're adding fat to a pound of ground, but 30%, maybe it was 13%. I have dyslexia. So let's flip those numbers around. It was 13%, but still they're able to stretch out the actual muscle because they're reducing the volume, where when you buy 80-20 from a producer or 90-10 from a producer at a local slaughterhouse, it's genuinely 90% beef, 20% or 10% fat. It's genuinely 80% beef, 20% fat. It's not added with LFTB that they can call beef, and it's not. So in other words, they're just getting more yield, which allows them to sell more pounds, and the producer's not doing that when you're buying it straight from the rancher. So you're getting the exact product that you're paying for when you're buying from the rancher. So anyway, interesting. Okay, so then you've got your next course here is your Choose Done For You solution. That's your biggest package. That to me has a lot of interest because for two reasons. You've priced it to where it actually makes sense and it's affordable for your average producer to get started and have it done for them. Because just as we talked about, we can have an excuse that we're too busy. Now, I would imagine that if somebody's running a ranch, working off farm, raising kids, that off farm is taking up that extra time they could put into their direct to consumer. So you have a product that says, okay, we'll get it running for you. And that could potentially build up to where now you're just farming full time. So talk to us about your Done For You program.
So it came about so there was a couple of people when we first started that pretty much the story you just said. They were super busy. They didn't have the time. And I kind of said, I'll do it for you, but don't tell anyone. I can't do this for everyone. I'm just doing it for you. Just shush kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I'm never doing it again. but then
those are always famous last words.
Yeah.
I'm never doing that again. And you're like,
right?
Oh man, here we are doing a retreat.
Yeah.
Starting a business for someone else.
Yeah.
Good on you though.
So within Empowering Farmers, we meet twice a month and we have coaching calls and we make sure that everyone is happy. No one is stuck. Like there's all that support. And just through those calls, I would hear, I just paid someone $3,500 and it doesn't work, or it's not what I wanted, or it doesn't look like your website, or, it's not beefy enough, but not beefy as in well packed, but beefy as in it's not beef oriented. And then it's just the website. Like they're not doing landing pages. They're not doing email set up. They're not doing any of that. It's just to get a website. And then I even had one lady and she was like, I gave them my money and they did a runner. And I'm like, it's just awful. So through that, it was like, well, do you guys want this as a service? Like, would you want me to do this for you based on my website? So based on how mine is laid out, based on my store, based on my descriptions, based on what we know converts. And they're like, yes, please. So we did it as a case study. Like we did 12 people as a case study in the month of October. And the results were amazing. Like the results were really good. Like they went from floundering to, oh my goodness, we're bringing in sales. And I just made 10 grand in a month that I haven't done that before. And it was like, maybe this is something that we should offer. So then it was polling our audience, polling our emails, polling everything. Is this something you guys want? And it was 80-20. It was 81% yes and 19% meh. So I'm like, okay, maybe we do have to do this. So it was kind of, and it is a done for you solution. We build your website, we populate your store. It's limited to 5 pages. Otherwise, we would be forever creating stuff. So it's limited to 5 pages. But if you want more, we do teach you how. 6 items in your store so that
you got somewhere to start.
We chose 6 because, like quarter size and whole, maybe a ground bundle, a selection pack, and a sample pack, just to kind of get people started.
Yeah.
And then we set up their email automations, and we give them landing pages that they can then drive traffic to without having to kind of spend a fortune. So and it seems to be super popular, which is kind of amazing, but also very busy.
Yeah, that's great. Do you think people need to even need more than the number of pages you're starting them with? Like how much time are people really spending on a website that they're going to do more than that you need to do so much? What do you think that from what you're seeing, what's the catalyst that customers are looking for to get connected? And where do you put more of that energy? I mean, you already said Instagram tells your story, but what are they looking for?
For us, over the last 4 years, whatever, our most popular item is a quarter cow. We sell more quarters than anything else. And the next most popular item is the ground bundle, 10 pounds of ground. And then, we do other things, but I know that there is platforms that will do it for you. But if you're a farmer, I honestly don't think you need to be worried about inventory. Like, here is a steak, and someone's going to buy a steak that I then have to go into my freezer and find that steak that you purchased and pack. Like, I don't have that time. It's just me and Scott. So we do the bulk and then we do bundles. So it's like a steak bundle. So people will pay a deposit. They pay the balance when they pick it up, or things like that. So there's nothing left over. Like, if you came to my freezer now, there's maybe a couple of packs of ribs rolling around, but it's empty because everything is new. But it's all, we don't itemize. We don't just sell a single steak. That I believe, and I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that do that and it's great, but I don't have time for that. And I don't think many farmers do. That you do what's easy for you. Don't bend over backwards for the customer, as harsh as that sounds. But if it doesn't work for you, you're not going to stick at it, and you're going to get tired and you're going to get frustrated and quit. Whereas if it works for you, you train the customer in, if you want to buy my amazing beef, this is how you buy it. Like, I'm not going to come to your house and you can't buy one steak, but this is what you can do.
Yeah. And there's enough people out there looking for what each person's offering that you don't need to try to do more than what you can sustain. And I've seen a lot more adoption for cow shares, quarter, halves, and wholes post COVID than prior, right? A lot of people are buying deep freezers and putting beef in there, or chicken or pork or whatever. They're just buying freezers and buying bulk. You still have the highly concentrated areas like New York and the big cities that they don't have the space for that. And so there's a marketplace for those that do have the bandwidth to sell a la carte items. But producers need to know how much work that is and be aware that you might end up with a lot of ground beef because everybody wants to buy your steaks.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I've met so many people, and I was one of them that learned that the hard way. Like, oh, I better make sure everything I send has some ground beef with it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to sell all the ground beef I have left over. So, yeah, interesting. Awesome. So what would you say your mission statement is, or your vision for Sell Beef Direct? What has you, why are you so committed to helping so many people with all the extra hours? Because I know you're not doing it for the money. I mean,
yeah. My whole goal, and that's why my first course is to empower farmers. Like, we're empowering farmers that no farms, no food. And I'm sure this might bring up a lot of, so we say plant-based hate, but there's no reason to be vegan. And that is killing, like, it's killing us. That we need to be able to source local. We need farmers to be productive. And without that, then we're all at the mercy of processes and fake food and fake meat and the health issues that come with that. So I mean, I don't know how much time we have left, but in a nutshell, like tiny nutshell.
We're not in a hurry, so yeah.
Okay. So I am super passionate about this because I have autoimmune disease. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and at my worst, I was paralyzed. Like literally, I couldn't move, and the meds were awful. The meds made my hair fall out. They made me nauseous all the time. I was an absolute nightmare to live with because my moods were just all over the place. And I spoke to my rheumatologist. I'm like, I can't live like this. And they're like, well, I can prescribe you this for that symptom. And I'm like, what? Like, no. And just with research and like, I think I went keto first, and then I cut out gluten. And over the course of 13 years, the past 4 years, I've been pretty much carnivore. Like I'm 100% carnivore, more sapien carnivore, that I definitely don't eat any vegetables, but I do eat fruit and dairy and red meat. And if I'm feeling a flare up, just red meat, but I'm in 100% remission, like no meds, completely signed off by my rheumatologist, back in the lowest health insurance bracket. Like it's not hanging over me that you were diagnosed with this, so we're not going to insure you. I'm back to doing triathlons, working out, lifting weights, whatever and that's why I'm passionate about this, because I honestly think so much out there is, as a nation or a population, is poisoning us. Like, I don't know, when I was growing up, no one had autoimmune. Like maybe one in a blue moon. Like, whereas nearly everyone I meet has some form of autoimmune, and it's like, why? But yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of my mission, is that we need farmers. We need this amazing source of food.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Cause I think that's a lot of people they're just now learning that food is pharma. Like the quality of the food you eat is your medicine, and getting back to that matters. And with what you're doing and what we're doing, you know, if people are going to start making that transition, the agriculture space actually isn't ready for you. We have so few producers left that if there's a mass adoption of that shift, we're behind the curve to even serve. So we've got to, it's like, you know, a three-legged stool. We got to get the consumers to catch up and understand the importance so that they can support the local producers. We've got to get the producers ready to be able to support in a new marketplace which is direct, and teaching them how to simplify those processes, you know, packaging for shipping frozen beef or whatever that looks, all of those nuances. And so, yeah, it all does need to be done at the same time. And it's good to meet people that are working on all of these different aspects. You know, I think early on, a lot of people felt like, holy crap, nobody's taking this on, and we've got a big problem. Now, a few years later, we get to meet each other and be like, okay, cool. And how can we align? Let's advance this faster. We can't do it alone, and we shouldn't be in our own echo chambers. But with that, I'm curious, one of the things that we get asked all the time about From the Farm is when we're coming to Canada. And
we've been getting that question since
all
we
the time
started our Discord group.
We've been asked that, you know, across the globe, but nobody more than Canada. And maybe it's the algorithm and, you know, how that works. But my question is, what are the similarities and the differences you see from your perspective between cattle producers in Canada and cattle producers in America?
I don't know whether there's any differences really. Like it's huge here, definitely in like Alberta and things. We don't have, the one thing that we differ, but more from a producer direct to consumer model, is that we cannot go out with our province. So in the States, you can ship nationwide, whereas here we have provincially inspected facilities and we have federally inspected facilities, but there's not many federally inspected ones. Like the closest one to me, or the only one in BC, will only do ground. Like we couldn't take an animal there and have it cut to order and ship it anywhere. Like they just don't. So that's one of the main differences.
Yeah. And there is some similarities in that, in the sense that in the States, you have state inspected facilities and you can only sell already packaged beef within the state, or you have the USDA, which is then you can sell nationwide. And the similarity is also the lack of production facilities. I don't know if
or you sell on the hoof. State facility, you sell before you process, and you can go anywhere.
That's the share, yeah. Whereas there's no one. I don't think I know any producers that sell interprovincially.
Interesting.
They're all within. I mean, like, we only do BC, and I only do a 4-hour radius, and we're doing 20 head a month.
Wow, which is also. Sorry, go ahead.
I can't remember what I was going to say now, but I mean, because we focus on those urban hubs, those. Like, my customers are not my neighbors or anyone near me, because we're super rural. So everyone has a steer in their backyard, or they have an uncle who gives them a side at Christmas or whatever. So our customers are in the cities,
right?
And they're not rural. They are in Vancouver and in Kelowna and in Nelson, which are. They're not even that big. I mean, the population of Canada is only 33 million. Like, they're not like they're massive, massive, big metropolises, but they're definitely more urban. And my student farmers are finding the same I have them all across Canada, but they all target those urban hubs. Especially my students in Manitoba struggle a little bit more, but once they kind of connected into those main cities, it was like the wall fell and they kind of took off. But yeah, and I'm sure that's the same for many small towns in the States too.
Yeah. How do you, with your social media, how do you target so precisely that where you're trying to?
Search engine optimization. So your profile on Instagram, if you were looking at it, your name field underneath your picture, that field there is the only field that has search engine optimization. So it should say what you do. It shouldn't say ABC Cattle Company, because if you're a consumer and you're searching beef in Texas, ABC Cattle Company is not going to turn up, because that is the only string that has search engine. So it should be ABC Cattle Co. / Beef Texas. Or something like that. Like you need to have it in that name field, but then also everything you post, like if you're driving that traffic, hashtags, not so much these days, but as long as you have good SEO and you're doing those keywords, the algorithm is like omnipotent in a digital world. Like it pushes your stuff where it's meant to go. You need to use it. It's not there to hurt you. Like, if you use it correctly, it really is powerful. So if you put in your caption all the places that you deliver to or ship to, eventually it'll go to people in those areas.
Yeah.
Like, that's how powerful it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know that your little description under your profile was SEO optimized, because I looked at it. Yeah. And I looked at it as, bullet points of what I'm up to or who I am.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are actually reading that? Instead, focus on the description that's actually going to help you reach the outcome of your Instagram. That's interesting. That's a good idea. You can bill me for that one.
It's basic too. Like, it's one of those things that is so simple, but like if you went into the search bar and you put in beef British Columbia, I think we come up top.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And that makes sense, because I've done searches on Google and I've seen Instagram show up as something that Google's assuming I'm looking for. And I'm like, I didn't know why Instagram is showing up, but that makes sense. Somewhere in their bio has the keywords that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's powerful. And even what you post, like, I had a student she's like, Amy, it's not working. I'm not getting any customers. It's just not working. And I had a look at her social media, and a lot of it was, some of it was beef and ranch, but a lot of it was homeschooling. It was all homeschooling, unschooling, wild schooling, looking for other parents who homeschool and making those connections. And I'm like, well, you can't have that on this. Like, if this is your page, your business page, you can't have dance recitals. You can't have homeschooling, because the algorithm is going to push your content to homeschoolers. You know, it literally looks for, you know, when you go into your grid or you go into things that are recommended for you, it looks at what you post and matches you with people who are looking for what you post. So if I post things about homeschool, I'm not going to be shown to people who are barbecuing and smoking and making beef and doing a brisket kind of thing. Like, that's how sensitive the algorithm is, but that's how it works in your favor.
Yeah. And so by not knowing that, it's a shotgun approach versus narrowing it in to what you're actually trying to accomplish. That's cool. That makes sense. Somebody asked a question here, and we'll probably wrap up with this one, Amy, but I didn't want to skip over it because it's about the autoimmune disease. So she said that
that's okay.
She's got autoimmune disease as well. So she appreciates you sharing. She's looking for an alternative to pharma. And her follow-up question was, how many pounds of meat do you eat per week, per person on average? So I think she's got two questions there. She's just curious because she's dealing with it, but then what does that look like for your family?
So, I mean, I now am pretty much 100% carnivore, and I find that because I eat predominantly meat, I tend to only eat twice a day. Like, I'm just not hungry, but if you put it into calories, I'm probably eating like 2,000. Like, it's not like I'm skimping, but I probably eat 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of beef a day.
It's not bad. Yeah. Great. Awesome.
And it definitely works. Like, I have a girlfriend who just got diagnosed, and she was like asking me advice, and she's like, I feel awful. I feel so bloated and weak and lethargic, and the doctors put me on this diet, and the diet was leafy greens and all this stuff, and I'm like, I can't eat that. Like, they literally trigger a flare up because they're anti-nutrients and they're just not great. Like, all the vegetables that I eat are actually fruit, like cucumber and avocado and squash. They're not vegetables strictly, they're fruits. So yeah.
Awesome.
Stay away from vegetables. Sorry.
You said, thank you. I'm seriously consider doing this now. So
look up the Lion Diet.
The Lion Diet?
Lion Diet is Michaela Peterson. And that's like,
that's like a strict carnivore.
Yeah. But it's like that palate cleanser. Yeah. But then if you do it for 6 weeks and you feel amazing, you can start reintroducing stuff. So like, I did Lion, but then now I drink red wine and I have dark chocolate and I have my yogurt and honey and blueberries and mango, whatever. Like, my diet is pretty broad. There's just no gluten, no grains, no vegetables.
Yeah. It's like my daughter, she's celiac and couldn't have, grain and stuff like that. But my wife started cooking with kamut. Now, she has had zero grain unless by accident for 5 or 6 years. My wife's cooking with kamut, fresh grinds the kamut berries into the flour and then bakes that way. And slowly she was tasting some of it. And now she can full on eat kamut bread with zero issues. And I think that's because she cleaned her system for so long that now she's introducing something that wouldn't have a problem because it's an ancient grain. There's no GMOs. There's no, nothing in it that's going to, prior to, just like the whole chronic health issue didn't exist when we were kids, celiac was like not a thing. And it became a thing because of the herbicides and pesticides and all of the other things. And now she can eat that. So cleansing your body for a while.
And just the processing.
Yeah.
And I think all the extra ingredients, because prior to the conversation about ancient grains, it was always known that you more than likely could have sourdough. Like if you didn't do gluten and it gave you, really inflammatory response, you more times than not, especially if you weren't in the US, if you're like in another country, but like sourdough bread, the ingredient list is minuscule in comparison to what you find at a grocery store on a label, unless you're homemaking bread. Like I grew up, my mom always baked bread. We did a lot of stuff from the garden and did things at home because we were poor, you know? We had this conversation, AJ. Yeah, you know, farmers they're poor.
Yeah. You figure out how to make that meal stretch.
You know, now it's like, oh man, we have to let's go back to just doing everything ourselves.
Yeah.
It's too dangerous getting anything at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The potential of it wreaking havoc in some way, shape, or form down the road, whether it's for you or for your children, it's high.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But yeah.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for being a guest today. Thank you for who you are and what you're doing for people. We're grateful to have met you, and from the farm's excited to find ways that we can collaborate further together. We've already taken care of a couple of the people on our platform, and we're looking forward to sending more your way if they need that. And so we're just really grateful that as a first generation producer, that it's caught you so much by the heartstrings that you're putting all this extra work in, because we need it. So we appreciate that. And where can people find you if they're in your province? What province are you in, and how can they find you to buy from you there?
I'm in British Columbia. I'm in the Kootenays, so in the middle, but I'm sold out until April. So
okay,
so
all right.
I'm not. But
congratulations,
you're welcome to
it's a good
sign
problem to have.
To the newsletter.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's good for you. And then, guys, we'll have, when we post this the recording up, we'll have links to Sell Beef Direct, so that if you're interested in those programs, you can get to those programs and talk to Amy. And if you're already on From the Farm, thanks for being here. We're happy to make that connection with Amy as well. And she's definitely going to help us with some of our own internal stuff. You know, like I said, we got to get better at our email list, our customer outreach too. So point us in the right direction. But awesome. Well, thanks again, Amy. We appreciate you being here.
You're welcome. I'm very excited. It's going to be an awesome 2025. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
I'd like to come visit when it's not winter.
Yeah.
Summers are awesome. Summers are really good. I mean, we get up to 30, 38 C. So that's like 90s, 100.
Perfect.
We'll have to come up for your branding. I'm not shaving my head, but I'll definitely come up.
That'd be awesome. That'd be fun. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Amy. You have a good night.
You're very welcome. You too. Nice to meet you, Devon. Bye.
All right, Brooke. That was another great interview. Glad to have her on.
Man, I feel motivated.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like when you and I when we have powwows or we have conversations or any meeting that the team is doing, we always, like, you leave, you're ready to do what we just decided we're going to work on, right? It's like these next steps. Okay, we're doing it. But to have someone like her who has really just grabbed the bull by its horns and did not come from any past knowledge, right? And it's just very motivating. And I think it also speaks volumes because we know that the movement for homesteading has grown exponentially. You know, I know there are more people out there like her that care and are fighting and doing what they can. And collectively, if, you know, we're all doing that, we will move this in the right direction.
Yeah. And having people like her and what we're doing to help simplify that process for all the people going into agriculture so they can be successful faster instead of having to run into all those roadblocks. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke. Appreciate it. Looking forward to what we do next.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good one. We'll see you.
All right. See ya.
Anything, it's how fragile our food supply chain really is.
I would hear the news talking about empty store shelves in the city, no meat. But yet I'm driving through the country and I see cattle standing in the field that a customer could buy. My name's AJ Richards, raised in St. George, Utah. My family are 5 generations of ranchers.
I'm Brooke Ants. Today it can be incredibly difficult to be a farmer or rancher, even for people that have been doing it generationally. It's not because of the work, but it's actually pressures from the big 4.
4 companies control 85% of our food supply chain. And in many cases, it's very clear that they're buying off politicians.
And if North Korea or China's Great Leap Forward have taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. Luckily, it's not all doom and gloom.
What's missing is a competitive marketplace. So I'm thinking about these unsold cows, and I just had this aha moment. What if somebody built a website similar to Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it highlighted and connected you with local farmers and ranchers so that we could actually go right to the producer?
So FromTheFarm.org is a digital farmers market connecting you, the customer, with local farmers and ranchers who produce meat, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. Plus, you can pick it up locally, and many producers even have shipping options.
The most important value of decentralization is food sovereignty. The ability for you, as a sovereign individual, to have the right to buy your food and source it where you choose. If you know the name of the producer growing it, you have now insulated yourself from not having it, like when the store shelves are empty.
We, the people, can take back control of our food. Invest in your family, invest in From the Farm.
From the Farm helps families access food with more nutrition than what you're going to find at the grocery store.
Studies have shown repeatedly that locally farmed produce is more nutritionally rich than factory farmed food. It just is. You can't beat it.
Because these small family farmers and ranchers are growing it how they were taught by their grandparents and great-grandparents, which is quality over quantity, because they're putting their personal name on that product, not hidden behind some massive corporate logo.
Hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, and chemical treatments, including carbon monoxide, are just some of the things these corporations do to increase profits and improve shelf life, not your life.
Meanwhile, up to 40% of your meat's nutritional value is lost in the process. There's also the environmental impact from all the mileage your food racks up. Apples, 1,556 miles. Lettuce, 2,055 miles. And beef, a staggering 2,874 miles, all resulting in unnecessary pollution across the country. But when you buy from local growers, these numbers turn into these numbers.
Not only is shopping with From the Farm decreasing pollution and reclaiming your food sovereignty, but you are also getting a superior product. Parallel food economies, or buying local, is the future of food.
I was actually the first person to invest in From the Farm. I was 100% all in. I've started businesses, I've had some really cool opportunities in the entertainment industry and the sporting world, but getting healthy food into more Americans' hands is more important than anything I've ever done.
So right now we've assembled our team. We've got some amazing people on board to execute and make this happen. Like Isaac Barlow, who knows how to scale tech companies in the blue collar space because he's done it before. Now we're in the process of raising the funding from you guys to help us scale this to the next level. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision, it's an investment in our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.